Hi, I'm Dr. Jennifer Bird. I'm a biblical scholar, and I happen to care very much about what people do with what they find in the Bible. And today's topic is about this question or this assertion that people make that say that women are primarily here to be baby makers. So that women's use of their vagina for sex for men and their uterus for babies for men is the primary purpose of women on this planet. And so there are plenty of people who turn to biblical passages to affirm this belief. So that's actually out there and in there. So what I want to do in this video, in this kind of a sub-series in the Does the Bible Tell You So series, I'm going to look at or share some of the highlights from chapter 8 of my book, Marriage in the Bible, What Do the Texts Say? And chapter 8 is titled Making Babies, ? And I'm going to start by just reading the introduction paragraphs to this chapter and then share an overview of what I talk about in this chapter. And one of the things I want to say up front is that it's really important to me to invite people to not just consider what is said, but also to consider the impact that it has on people, that this is what it says. Or, given the way people in someone's faith community choose to focus on certain passages over others, how does that choice impact people, male or female or otherwise, right? So this isn't just about looking at what the texts say, but that's also very important to me, but also then sitting with the emotional and psychological impact this has, especially when the cherry picking is one way or the other, okay? So, chapter 8, Making Babies, the intro, it's pretty short. So, as with so many other chapters in this book, this chapter is geared toward inviting you to take seriously something you are likely aware of, but perhaps have not spent much time sitting with. What is the psychological impact on all readers if the stories about women that are most often told depict them as important primarily because of their uteruses? This topic is perhaps a subset of the What Are They Modeling chapter, which is chapter 9 in this book. But given how far-reaching and how effective this specific biblical standard is, I think it is important enough to warrant its own space for consideration. There are 3 separate pieces of this chapter's contribution to the overall conversation. The first is a quick review of how children, more specifically sons, are talked about becoming a part of the world. The second is an honest engagement with the themes or threads throughout the Christian Bible that do communicate to people that women truly are, primarily, baby makers. The third component of this chapter is a quick review of stories and characters that suggests that women in the Bible are useful for things beyond their baby-making potential. The second and third pieces, taken together, raise important questions for people of faith, for those who like to uphold biblical ideas, and for those who do not understand why so many people of faith do focus on women's procreative capacities. So the first section here is I talk about how men become fathers over and over and over, not just in the Hebrew Bible, but also in the Newer Testament. So we have all those, begats. People like to kind of roll their eyes at all the begats, but it's all these men becoming fathers, like it happens magically or something, right? I mean, it doesn't. We all know that, but it's being talked about as if a man becomes a father, and there's no conversation about the sex that took place to make that happen, or the woman who brought the child into the world. And it's primarily focused on the men, and rarely do we hear about daughters as being terribly important. A piece of the larger picture here, right? So men become fathers magically in the Hebrew Bible, but also in the Newer Testament. The 2 genealogies of Jesus in Matthew and in Luke, one is 41 generations and the other is 76 generations. And total, there are only 4 women named. And those 4 women are named in Matthew's genealogy probably for reasons very particular and specific to some form of confusion or question raised over Jesus' own genealogy, or the father of Jesus, to be specific. But anyway, so in whatever 112 or whatever, 117, there are only 4 women mentioned. It's all about the men, right? Of course. I mean, this is still a thing today that people talk about, we trace through the male lineage or whatever. I'm not trying to critique these things per se. I'm trying to ask you to pay attention to it, and then the effect that's going to have on people over the centuries, right? That it's just men, the father of, the father of, the father of, or the son of, the son of, the son of, the son of. How does that impact the way you think about these things, regardless of your gender, right? That's important to me, to just sit with that, okay? So then the second and third parts of this chapter are doing what I said at the beginning, looking at the fact that, yeah, there's a really strong tradition in the Hebrew Bible and in the Newer Testament, both, that value women, or that talk about women as important because of the children they're bringing into the world, or that they are property that is claimed by a man having sex with them. So that all of these things take place through the vaginal canal or the uterus, right? Lots of things about a woman's importance happen in that body part of hers, right? Body part or two. That isn't the only story, though. That's the thing, right? So we have a very strong tradition saying women aren't really women, or that they're not fully realized as humans until they have children. And that's a part of the culture. That's a part of, that's reflecting for us what was going on for people. It's important to pay attention to that. But the problem was we continue to perpetuate that standard instead of seeing it for what it was, which is an ancient way of thinking about humans or our value in this world, right? So yes, that is a strong tradition in the Hebrew Bible. It is also a strong tradition in some of the commands in the later letters in the Newer Testament. But what's interesting to me is in the Newer Testament and in the Hebrew Bible, so both testaments have this baby maker trend, but they both also have multiple examples of women who are valued for their capabilities or their business savvy, or right, their intellect, their ability to be leaders. So both in the Hebrew Bible, and I discussed it in the third section of this chapter, all kinds of women are named and valued, and they're heroines for this, right? As well as people who interact with Jesus. There are a lot of women who interact with Jesus who are important for nothing at all to do with their family making abilities, right? And there are women that Paul highlights, absolutely not about their relationship status or their ability to produce children. In the genuine Paul, the genuine Paul, the Deutero Paul turns that on its head, but the genuine Paul is pretty much just interested in women contributing to the movement, whatever that might be, or in whatever way that might be, I should say. So it's really a fascinating thing that, yeah, sure, it is a biblical ideal to say that women are supposed to be trad wives, right? That is a biblical ideal, but so is the ideal that a woman's marital status and mothership status is totally irrelevant to who they are and the way they contribute to a community or to the world. They're both in there, right? So let me read the last 2 paragraphs of this chapter, because I think they're pretty important. Again, while we do not know the marital status of all of these women who've interacted with Jesus, many are noted as belonging to a man. But the relating of these women's interactions with Jesus is typically about some form of faith lesson. The women mentioned by Paul are named because of their prominence and power within their community. So the concluding thoughts to this chapter. Given that both testaments of the Christian Bible have both a strong baby maker depiction of women as well as an impressive representation of women important for their minds and capabilities, I have 2 questions for you. 1, why do you suppose the baby maker expectation is still so prominent in parts of our country where Christianity is prevalent? And the more conservative it is, the stronger these particular social scripts are. It's kind of a rhetorical question, but not entirely, right? And parenthetically, conservative communities usually pride themselves on being close readers of the texts, in parentheses. And then 2, since the Hebrew Bible, Jesus and Paul could all name or interact with women in a way that affirms their importance beyond their uteruses, Do you join me in wondering why Jewish and Christian congregations are not at the forefront of the fight for equality for women? Everyone cherry picks. The question is, to what ends? I hope you found this video helpful. I'm interested in inviting people to pay attention to what is being said in these biblical texts and to think about it for yourself. I hope you'll join me for another video. Thanks. Take care.